Welcome everybody, Game 3 between Strelok and Scarlett. Come on mouse, I believe in you. There's Scarlett. Series is tied 1-1. Two fairly different games, though we had mech out of Strelok in both attempts. I think Scarlett just adapted to what was coming at her, went for a swarm host build in the second game with Vipers, was just able to put on enough pressure against a very immobile Terran army that just pushed him into really bad positions. In the first game, the entire momentum shift when Strelok pushed out with a pretty strong mech army that Scarlett just couldn't deal with, and it turned the whole momentum around, giving Strelok the opportunity to expand and keep an army at a good enough size to defend. The second game, we tried the same attempt to push out and do some damage, but was caught, had his army crushed, and after that standpoint, just really wasn't going to be able to take care of it. I don't know what min door means. Minimize the door. We had a Rax opening from both of the games from Strelok, and this time I think he's actually going to go for a CC first, which is a very interesting choice because in game 2 we saw Scarlett go for a roach bust, very aggressive roach bust, about 10 or 12 roaches very early on 2 bases without any upgrades, and was able to get a ton of damage in and deny the expansion. In this case, it looks like he really wants to go, and it's even going to be a low ground one on top of that. This map is a little bit more forgiving. It is a 4-player map. It takes longer to scout, longer to commit to something like that. Interesting risk. Maybe Strelok feels he needs to try something a little bit more dynamic in order to try to get that advantage over Scarlett. We haven't really had cheese out of these players in either game. The roach bust, I don't consider a cheese. I think it's just a very good tactic to deal with somebody who's playing greedy. And in this case, we have a very greedy opening from Strelok once again. And even if you look at the way he spaced this barracks, he's designing it so they can throw down an add-on as soon as possible as well. Essentially saying, if I get countered with like a 6 pool or a 9 pool, even like a 12 pool with speed, I'm probably just gonna lose. And on 4-player maps, though you might not think so, I see a lot more pro players that are Zerg go for aggressive Zergling attacks more often, just because it's a much higher probability your opponent is going to be going for some sort of aggressive economic opening. Go on, computer. Surprisingly enough, though, when I'm playing on my craptastic bottom of the barrel Starcraft ladder, even on 4-player maps, I don't think that really dictates too much of the playstyle when people are just as bad as me. I think some people are just comfortable with that build style and they try it regardless. I've seen really small, short rust distance maps where people try to go expansion first and just lose. And I've seen these kind of 4-player maps where you've got to focus on economy and people just try to one-base it. I'm sure seeing no crazy tech out of the Zerg player gives Strelok a little bit of feeling of relief. Units wise, not that far behind in workers, and with the double mules, they're going to be able to keep on top of it pretty well. Now, Scarlett has not seen anything from her opponent, but is still going to go for a 3rd base, even before any gases go down. I like her setup here as well. Very similar on the hotkeys for the hatches. Let's see if we get into queens on a different hotkey here. I like watching the first-person point of view of players in this position. They're just so quick. It looks like she either canceled or just decided not to go for that hatch right away before she scouted. She's probably smart. Go back to everybody's point of view here. Yeah, there's still not even a wall down. There's only 2 Marines out for the Terran player. Had this been a more aggressive roach bust once again, or even, you know, a really aggressive speedling opening, yeah, I think Strelok would have just died. But it's hard to be able to predict that. Instead, we have actually a pretty fast lair and a 3rd base, even before the 7-minute mark. Hellions should be able to get an understanding about that third base. I don't expect them to push too much further. We do have the Roach Warren Evolution Chamber wall off, which is pretty common. Looks like we're only going to get the 4 Hellions. I'm probably going to move into a pretty fast tank here. Yes, there we go. Just to make sure. It is pretty cool about this map is you can't get that tank up here on this kind of sniper ground. You just gotta be careful that there's not an overlord that's going to get vision. Doesn't get the cancel on that creep tumor. Does have the 4 queens up once again, so I expect the creep to be really rocking and rolling here soon. We're going to get a Spire once again out of our Zerg player. I noticed one of the reasons that I'm actually I suffer sometimes in Zerg is just not hitting my injects well enough. So I do like watching Zerg players for how good and how diligent they are with getting their injects. Just because that is like the huge difference. If you're getting pressured, your ability to just produce units is your advantage. If you can't do that, you die. Not much else to it. I think this is the fastest third base we've seen out of the Terran player in this series so far as well. Strelok feeling pretty comfortable to push into stuff. 13 more workers for the Zerg player. No Spire play. No Infestation Pit. So we really don't get a good understanding yet of what... Oh, that's what it's going to be. Ventral Sacs, Hypnotized Carapace. We might actually be getting that fancy newfangled roach drops that I was talking about. By newfangled, I mean it happens all the time. And it's been happening for months. 4th base, well, looks as though Scarlett's pretty geared up here for the late game. Gonna have that economy in the right spot. Already up with a huge pile of workers. Oh, great little stutter step there by Scarlett. Just managed to slow things down a little bit. And we'll take out that Hellion before it goes in for a scout. Pretty expensive to throw away 3 or 4 Hellions for a scout when you can't use a scan with 1 of your 3 orbitals. Just making a Viking. Just one for right now. Probably gonna run around the map and check to see what's going on for overlords and expansions. 4 factory. Just love that build. Such a huge fan. I usually do the 4 or 5 factories on 3 bases. Usually I can support 5 factories because my macro is really bad and I let my money get high. Sees the tank shot. Is just going to back off. 21 roaches. Once again against the mech. I think Scarlett's just adapting so well to the playstyle we see out of Strelok. What she's going to do is see this really good tank position. Make it seem as though she's going nowhere, so there's no Thors, no big Viking counts, and just come in with huge roach amounts and drop all over this army. Blue Flame will be finished up here soon, but it's not going to help out a whole lot against these roach numbers that are about to pop. Once again, phenomenal creep spread. As these roaches are going to push around the map, control the vision, and hopefully surprise the Terran player by dropping all over the mech army. Oh. Looks like the Terran player did see this coming. I thought he was going to go for a drop on the army. Instead, it looks as though it's going to be just a drop in the main. These roaches could go on this side, but I thought going to this base might be a bit more effective. Scarlett's still making tons and tons of roaches. Is getting roach burrow, cunning cause there, so it should be able to be a little bit more of a pest. He's actually going to pick off this command center. Pretty big mistake there from Strelok. It always sucks when you have the opportunity to save something valuable like that and you just don't. It would be pretty nice to intercept his workers, but there's no units down here that can be able to do that. Running the overlords back over. She should probably produce another big pile of overlords. She's both supply blocked and she could potentially lose a whole bunch. Oh, no vision here. And these are the only tanks that are in siege mode right now, so this could be pretty effective. God, that looks so funny. You can see the marks in the ground, right?
Somebody, get me out of this mess.
Now the roaches don't have the best in upgrades right now. It's still 0-2, but it's only 0-1 for the Terran. So taking out all these tanks, super useful. She's going to push forward to try and trade as much as she can. They have to use a few more roaches than I think she maybe needed to. This pure roach commit is actually pretty cool. What is that? Again, she does need to produce a ton of overlords at home. She's got the bank too, and she could end up losing a bunch of these here to the Vikings. Terran's in a pretty bad spot right now. Said she got 2 bases. This one's pretty mined up. Overlord down. Up by about 20 or so. I do believe at one point in there was some sort of drop by the Terran player. It looked like a Hellbat drop. But if we once again look at the workers killed, whatever drop it wasn't super effective. We actually have a Hive tag about here to pop. Don't know if we're going to be seeing the Ultralisks, but we don't have a Spire, so it might just be for upgrades for right now. Ooh, Hydras as well. Now Scarlett did a bunch of damage, but as you can see right now, she doesn't have that big of a supply leak. She's not building up that giant pile of roaches. She does have 17 larvae, so at any point she can build up another 30-40 supply just in roaches. I think right now it's more important for her to just be mobile and to keep the Terran at home as long as possible. And if there is a move out, see it coming and then produce a ton of units. As in, it looks like what is about to happen. +2 is about to finish up, and apparently that's a good enough reason for Strelok to push across the map, even with a pretty small supply. It's just going to be important that he doesn't get caught by that burrowed roach play again. Oh no, come back. Hey, this is going to be a Spire coming out soon. 21 Hydras in production. A few roaches somewhat cheaply there. You'd be pretty careful about that. This base is just finished up. Looks like we did have another Hellbat drop. Only 1 kill out of all that. Either that or the Vikings landed. It's like the roaches tried to go in there for a bit of a counter. Wasn't super effective there, unfortunately. 19 more roaches in production. Might be able to get pretty close to this base here. It has been evacuated for all intents and purposes. Oh, okay, I got shot in the face. Cancelled all the eggs there, might as well. A big Spire transition might be effective, but there's not enough bank to produce, you know, like 12 units over this army, unfortunately. Good little leapfrogging of tanks here. Do like the Vipers out here, I think that's pretty well. One more drop, nice cloud there. Tanks, they have a range of 1 essentially when that happens. Range, yeah, it's just melee, so essentially it's a range of 1. And once again, same thing as in game 2. Strelok pushed out, got dominated by one army, and just you can't recover from that as a mech Terran player, particularly as your economy's that shattered. It takes just too long to remake. Pretty good game there out of Scarlett. If she didn't have those Vipers in play, I think that things might have turned out a bit differently, so good on her for being wise enough to pull that off. Thanks for tuning in. It is now 2-1 for Scarlett. We should have game 4 for you guys here casted before you know it.